For just a moment. Like, no one knows that there's actual lyrics to that song. They just heard the love song from St. Elmo's Fire. And then when you hear the "We left,"
it's terrible. It's terrible.
We had to cry.
Oh, God. Okay, welcome back, Screamers, to another episode where we contemplate our places in a media-defined generational group of stars. Today we're talking another Gregg Araki film, totally fucked up, and we'll also dive into what is to be part of the Brat Pack what it is to be part of the Brat Pack by taking a look at the new documentary Brats and the dangerous banger, according to Jason, St. Elmo's Fire. So, Jason, do you want to dive into the meaning of life what defines the Brat Pack?
I want to tell you something and I want to ask you a question.
Okay.
You know, there's a lot of podcasts out. Maybe I don't want to ask a question. Maybe I don't even want to say the words. There's a lot of podcasters out there flaking and perpetrating, but are scared to kick reality. Are you ready to kick reality, Brock?
Do you want to talk Brats, Jason?
If you were coming of age in the 1980s, the Brat Pack was near the center of your cultural awareness. But for those of us experiencing it from the inside, the Brat Pack was something very different. On June 10th, 1985, New York Magazine published Hollywood's Brat Pack. I just remember seeing that cover and thinking, oh. From then on, my career and the career of everyone who was involved was branded to the Brat Pack.
I'm really sorry that article had to come out.
I've never talked to anybody about what that was like. So I thought it might be interesting to try and contact everyone who was in the Brat Pack. Hey, Emilio Estevez. This is Andrew McCarthy calling you. Hey, Allie. Hey, Demi. Hey, Molly. Let's call Rob. Hello. Judd? Me? You around? You were not interested in talking about the Brat Pack for years.
I turned everything down.
How come you're talking to me?
Because you called me. It was time that we clear the air on a couple things.
I love your stuff, Bob. Hey, thank you. I hated the Brat Pack for decades. What a disaster. If you could have the Brat Pack name not exist, would you?
It really irritated me. They said, what's more important to you, the movie or your life? And I said,
the movie!
Andrew.
Have you talked to the others? The others. Like, again, it feels like a cult or something.
Yeah.
Why did we take it as an offense?
Well,
as opposed to like
the brat.
Because we were young.
We were afraid we were brats, you know. Are you in the Brat Pack?
I'm Brat Pack adjacent.
That's what I was saying.
I am not in the Brat Pack.
Don't you? Crush on you back in the day?
You did not, Andrew. No, you did not.
Being in the Brat Pack not only changed all of our lives, it changed what entertainment is. I mean, I'm not going to say we were the Beatles or anything.
Well, we didn't fill Shea Stadium. There were moments.
We could have. 1985? I think we could have.
So what are you filming?
Oh, we're just doing this documentary.
What's it about?
Ancient history.
Let's talk Brats. The new pseudo-documentary from Andrew McCarthy.
Brats centers on 1980s films starring the Brat Pack and their profound impact on the young stars' lives.
2 words, and they ruined them all. Every single Brat Packer had a shitty career.
I was gonna say, like, is this like? I mean, is his thesis flawed?
Well, so I think his. I find Brats to be wildly interesting because
I do too.
As you were making a documentary, right? I would imagine that if you asked every documentary filmmaker to a person, the film you started out to make is not necessarily the film you ended up making.
Right.
Unless you asked Andrew McCarthy, because the film that he started out to make was absolutely the film that he ended up making, which was not to say that he ended up wanted to make a movie that made him kind of look like he needed a hug. But that's the movie that he ended up making.
Right.
there's a moment halfway through this, and not even halfway, where he's like, maybe it was just me. And like, I'm like, wow, man.
I know.
That's pretty heavy.
And there's another moment where he just goes, what a shit show. Because he gets like lost or something. And I'm just like, this is kind of interesting. But it's a weird
It is bizarre.
Documentary, right?
It is bizarre. And to like position it, and for Hulu to put together the trailer to position it as like all of them were on board with, we were nonplussed to have this moniker placed upon us. We couldn't believe it as such young professionals that some irresponsible New Yorker reporter would.
It was a New York Magazine.
New York Magazine reporter would insert himself into our lives that we've invited him to, like so nicely, and then write these scandalous, truthful things about us. Yeah. And to be fair, some of them are a little pointed, but whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, that article, I think Blum gets too much credit, but also doesn't get enough blame in a weird way. I mean, because, look, he clearly wants to be Gay Talese. He clearly wanted to write Frank Sinatra Has a Cold, but he's not as good of a writer as Gay Talese. Right? But he still kind of thinks he is, right? And at a certain point, he thought that documentary was about him, too.
100%. 100%.
And he's even like, well, I thought my career was going to take off and that Tina Brown was going to be calling, to go write for the New Yorker. So, I mean, look, he knew exactly what he was doing.
Which is why he agreed to be in the... Because had he have been this, now we're talking about him in some sort of hushed tone, then this... where he was now this, writer du jour, that's what he wanted, right? Yeah. And so the reason that he takes shows up in the documentary is to reignite the flame and interest in having people read his work. And of course, he like immediately comes up with a rebuttal article to it. Like, I called him Brats, and I stood by what I said. Even though, like, in the article, he said at one point he did apologize to Estevez, but then he was like, I didn't really mean it. I'm surprised that McCarthy doesn't, because I don't think he's a dumb guy. I don't think he's untalented. I don't understand why there wasn't a shift at a moment where you realize, Demi Moore is fine. Mm-hmm. Like, Demi Moore's career doesn't start to unravel until Striptease. Like, and I'll get back to the question I'm going to ask you here in a second. Okay. But like, but Estevez is fine. Mm-hmm. He had a great career all the way through the 90s, and you can argue, okay, yeah, he starts to go down the Mighty Ducks realm, and like, yes, it starts to wane. But I mean, everyone's career starts to wane at some point. Sure. Right? I mean, it's sans Tom Cruise, and Tom Cruise was never really, even though he was identified as part of the Brat Pack.
That was another weird thing.
I'll go through all of
that. Okay.
I've got all these names outlined too in the article. Like, because that's the question I want to ask you is who the Brat Pack was to you. Yeah. But so Estevez is fine. Rob Lowe is absolutely fine. Nelson doesn't show up. Ringwald doesn't show up. Anthony Michael Hall doesn't show up. And Sheedy's like, Sheedy's a vision, and I'd love her so much. And like, if I could be a young teen and be in love with Ali Sheedy in War Games again, like long-haired, sun-kissed face Ali Sheedy is just amazing.
What? So how do you feel about high art?
I like high art.
Okay.
A lot.
Okay. No. I do too. But I think that
I like Made to Order. I mean, let's be honest.
But I mean, I think that is another kind of version of Ali Sheedy where I was just like,
it's a redefinition of a career.
This is the same person in the Breakfast Club, and this is amazing.
Right.
Yeah.
So all of them, I mean, sans maybe Ringwald, who had a hard time like coming out, but like probably made enough money where it didn't make a difference.
But she also married like a French novelist.
Right.
I mean, so it's kind of like, I'm out of here, right?
Like, to me, the one who had the hardest time was Nelson, but he was probably also the least talented actor.
I was going to say, I think that was because,
And so like
he should have kept playing Benders. And,
He had the least amount of range, because then when he pops up in New Jack City, it's kind of seen as now it's a resurgence, and that guy. I mean, like a very small, brief one, because it doesn't really pan out for him. But I mean, and then he starts to make direct-to-video thrillers and shit like that. So it's not like, I mean, he's fine.
Wasn't he in like The Substitute 3 or something?
Probably, yes. When James Belushi can't do the job.
You got Tom Berenger, James Belushi.
Actually, I take that back. James Belushi was the principal. The substitute was Tom Berenger.
That's right, yeah.
Such good movies. Watch all 800 of them.
Were they in... No, that was Rob Lowe. Rob Lowe was in the James Belushi, David Mamet film.
James Belushi Mamet film? Which one was that?
It was based off of Sexual Perversity in Chicago. I forget what it was called.
About Last Night.
About Last Night. Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry.
No.
That was early Mamet. That does not register with me as Mamet. Even though I know that it is, Sexual Perversity in Chicago is the original, like the stage play of that. But this was when James Belushi had a little bit of legitimacy, and then it fell off. He fell off. As soon as he did Real Men with John Ritter, then that was the end of his career, to me anyway. And I like Real Men. That's fine. I mean, I like Real Men and just in general, but I also like to film real men. So, where was I? So, like, McCarthy. Okay, so let's take a look at McCarthy's career. He goes from Pretty in Pink, and like he had done a bunch of kids, like he did Class. He had done a bunch of like those types of, and did Pretty in Pink, of course.
But he was the only one who went to school. Right. And this is what I think separates him in a weird way, is that...
And it's not even mentioned in the article.
Right.
The original article.
I know. Like, how did he get lumped in with this stuff?
Right, because... Strange. Okay, so let me ask you that question. Yeah. So who was the Brat Pack to you when you think of the Brat Pack, or when you heard that term?
So I think of kind of the Pretty in Pink... Breakfast Club, St. Elmo's Fire, like Venn diagram.
See,
I guess.
To me, it never registered that St. Elmo's Fire of people, other than there were people that were in the Brat Pack that were in, because I wouldn't.
But I think that's why.
Right. I wouldn't put Hemingway in the what's not Muriel?
Mary Winningham.
Mary Winningham, not Hemingway.
We don't talk enough about Mary Winningham.
I know.
She's fantastic.
Well, she's ridiculously fat in St. Elmo's Fire, but we'll get to that.
Yeah.
She wears
glasses.
Right. She wears glasses and Spanx. The first on-film Spanx in history.
She's a wonderful actress.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway.
Grotesquely obese in St. Elmo's Fire. But
Jason's being sarcastic here. Okay. I want everyone to realize this. But I guess that's kind of what I guess I consider Molly Ringwald. I guess I consider...
See, to me, it ended and began with the Breakfast Club. It was those six with the Brat Pack, right? That was it. Like, I didn't even really include McCarthy, because McCarthy, when Bloom talks about the very beginnings of the Brat Pack movement, which is, he said, was Taps, which great movie. I haven't seen it. Sure. Taps is amazing. But
so that means like Sean Penn.
But Sean Penn, Cruz. I think he talked about Hutton as the godfather of the Brat Pack, that he was the kind of like elder statesman of the Brat Pack. Although he talks about how like Harry Dean Stanton was like the godfather to all of them. Not,
I know, which was weird, right?
Right, yeah. He's like the guy they all look up to because he can party with them.
I know. Probably out party them.
Oh, 100% that
sure. Guy, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Him and Bruce Dern, I can't imagine anybody drinking those two people under the table.
Did I tell you I had my first go round at college, I was in an English class, and this professor walks in, and he's 77. I mean, he's old, bald, wearing a suit, carries a briefcase, never opened it, but always, seriously, never opened it. He sat down and he's like, before anything else, I want to let you all know I've been everywhere, done everything, and I can drink each and every one of you under the table. I was just like,
all right,
cool. Anyways,
that should be a good class.
So in fact, it was Harry Dean Stanton. It was a good class.
He was wearing a ball cap. He still had hair, weirdly enough, but he just
thought it'd be fun.
Right, right. He was preparing for a role. And so the films that were Brat Pack films, like were the earliest from, according to Bloom, were Taps, Outsiders, Rumblefish. Even though I think Rumblefish is kind of a stretch because no one knows that film. Like of all of the S.E. Hinton films, no one knows Rumblefish. Right. I figure Rumblefish is less known than That Was Then, This Is Now.
Right. Yeah.
But and then Breakfast Club. But for me, like when I ever heard Brat Pack, the term, it was always Hughes people. But they were also, and you had to do more than one of them, right? You had to have been in more than one Hughes film, but it didn't follow over to like Broderick or Alan Ruck. Those two, I mean, because Alan Ruck was probably 30 when he was doing Ferris Bueller anyway.
Cameron.
It didn't fall over to Gray. And to me, like, even though Hutton has Ordinary People and Taps, and like he was in some of those films, and he never felt like he was part of it either. I guess because Turk 182 and all those things came prior to the Hughes era. So to me, it always just spoke of like, if you were in a Hughes film, that it was, but then it didn't really go over to like the second lead in Weird Science or like Robert Downey Jr. He didn't really cover.
And John Cryer
never did anything else. I mean, like
connected to that,
right? He did. I mean, like he did Morgan Stewart and a few other like teen films, but and he did like Hiding Out and a few other things.
Yeah, but he was never connected. He was never really kind of put in that,
right? And I guess like it's a weird, like as soon as you get over to Demi Moore's house and you're interviewing her in her palatial mansion, or she's sitting outside of a pool and she's, you know, a vision, and she's fine. She's in this kind of Zen state, and like. They're talking about it's not a very nice term. Like who wants to be called a brat? Like if that's your thesis statement of who wants to be called brats.
Yeah.
Like it's a weird, and I understand like the idea of them kind of recoiling at the term at the time that it happened. But it also feels like there was so much cachet to be a part of that.
Yeah.
And to be associated with that group, that it's like, to me, learning the timeline of like, okay, when St. Elmo's Fire comes out and then the article comes out and then they're like, we're never going to do a movie together again. Like we can't do it because we're being associated with one another. No one takes us seriously. That was surprising to me.
And I think that's where McCarthy gets hurt.
Right.
And I think that's, and I mean like career-wise and personally, right? Because he was supposed to, I mean, and you know, he sits down with Estevez in Estevez's house, and it's been like 30 years, right?
Right.
Which all of that seemed weird to me too. But where Estevez was like, oh yeah, I wasn't going to do that film with you because of the article. And McCarthy was just like, yeah, I mean, I know, and that was terrible. but that's where I think you start to see the kind of damage then that this does.
Right.
Or could do, right?
Yeah.
And where McCarthy's probably like, okay, wait. Because he's not Demi Moore. And what I mean is like Demi Moore, Ali Sheedy, they're going to do other stuff, like regardless. Estevez is a Nepo baby.
Right.
I mean, right? And I don't mean that in like a bad way.
So is Penn. So is, I mean, like almost all of them are.
And Penn's not even like wrapped up in the St. Elmo's Fire stuff. But Rob Lowe, again, does not look like Andrew McCarthy. Right, regardless of his hair in that movie.
But Andrew McCarthy never, like, he's not Rob Lowe. But I mean, like, Rob Lowe is a golden god. I mean,
that's what I mean, right? So, like, Rob Lowe is going to get other parts based on, McCarthy's going to go do stage stuff in New York.
But I mean, Weekend at Bernie's and Mannequin.
Later on, right. But I just mean, I think you can see where he's kind of like, okay, something happened here. Like, you know, we kind of went on divergent paths. And, like, why did that happen and how?
Right, but if you look at McCarthy's career versus Estevez's career,
it's not a bad career.
It's not.
No,
I mean, like
no.
you still like pivot to things like Less Than Zero, and like
that's right.
It feels like it, and maybe he was dealt a hard hand, and maybe he was turned down for a bunch of different roles. But I mean, like you were in arguably one of I mean, Mannequin's not a flop. Mannequin does well. Like, I mean, Weekend at Bernie's wasn't a flop. I mean, it was a huge hit. So like you're in that mode of kind of, you've started to get into more of a comedic role. I don't know. I just feel like it's one of those things where at a certain point, people are going to get tired of everyone. And it happened to Estevez. It happened to Lowe. It happened to Spader. It certainly happened to Anthony Michael Hall and Sheedy and Ringwald. I mean, like, all of them start aging out. And
no one got tired of Molly Ringwald. She decided to leave.
Right. And people start to not see, they see you in a certain way. But that's the way of Hollywood, right?
Right.
And so it's only someone like Cruise who sells his soul to the devil and who can kind of make that transition. And then Penn, who is just a megalomaniacal prick who also can navigate this world well and is probably the most talented of all of them anyway, right? Yeah.
Like, he will force his way into something, like, regardless.
But you want to go through the guys who Bloom said were in the original Brat Pack?
Yes.
Okay, so, and I'll give you his nicknames for all of them.
Oh, God, that's right.
So Estevez was the leader. Cruz was the hot one, which was basically not hot physically, but like hot box office wise. Rob Lowe was the beautiful one. Nelson was the overrated one. Timothy Hutton was the one with the Oscar. Dillon was the one who was least likely to replace Brando. See, and I don't really think of Matt Dillon at all.
I know. This was the thing with that article.
Even though he did like Tex and like he was in Rumblefish and The Outsiders, like Dillon to me never surfaced in a Hughes film. So like he never really like, and like not even in a Hughes adjacent film, whether it's a Deutsch film or or the St. Elmo's Fire thing with Schumacher. And they said that Dillon's flame had diminished because he did Flamingo Kid, which I think Flamingo Kid's a fine movie. It's not a bad movie. Yeah. I mean, it didn't do well, but it wasn't a bad movie. Okay, they talk. Here's the one that's really weird. Nicolas Cage is the ethnic choice.
I saw. Yeah, none of these names like made sense to me. Right? The ethnic choice because.
Right. Well, they said because
he's Italian.
Yeah, I guess, and so he plays the best friend or the brother a lot, which Nicolas Cage doesn't pop up until like he's in Fast Times, but you don't know it if you don't know who he is. I mean, it's a cameo role,
right?
He's in Valley Girl. What else is Cage like? By that time, then he's in Raising Arizona and other things.
He's
Peggy Sue Got Married, maybe. But
how would you classify that
as a teen film? Really,
yeah,
right? Yeah. It's like to me, like it's weird that he even gets brought up in this because Cage would be so new here. Like by the time St. Elmo's Fire, I don't even know what he's done, to be quite fair. But like it wouldn't have been enough, other than his name recognition and being a Coppola, wouldn't have been enough to include him in any of these circles.
No.
And then they talk about Penn, which is he was the most gifted. Matthew Broderick and Modine are on the outskirts. And then Harry Dean Stanton is the Godfather.
That's just so weird.
The other one that surprised me that he wouldn't include in this was Charlie Sheen. Because and I know that Charlie Sheen didn't quite hit until after all of this happened, but he was still in Ferris Bueller. Now, granted, it was a cameo role, but then he was in things like Lucas and Three for the Road, and he did enough stuff where
does like Red Dawn fall into
right?
This,
and that's
right?
that's the other thing too, right? Red Dawn,
because there were,
and I guess Swayze's too old to be, and what's crazy about and I guess Bloom was trying to tie this to the Rat Pack, right? But there's no mention of the women in this article, which speaks to
shocker 85, right?
But I mean, like, to discount
Bloom seems like that kind of guy too, though.
Right? But then Demi Moore gets looped into a Brat Pack role, which to me, like, what else did she do? That was, like One Crazy Summer. She had done a few, but
Cusack's not,
and Cusack's not a part of this, or neither is Piven. And Piven shows up and certain, like, he'd at least be a John
adjacent,
Cryer.
yeah,
right,
yeah.
But Sheen seems like, as Estevez's brother, that he would have tied into this at some point. They talk about so the whole article, and I know you read it, but like the whole article really just paints them as kind of like kids who are dealing with fame, right? And he gets shitty about like, oh, they didn't want to pay for movie tickets, and
right? I know, yeah.
Like, yeah, of course you don't. Like you're nepo babies.
I don't want to pay for movie tickets.
Right. Yeah, we ask for press passes
all the time. Yes. Right. So okay,
like if you were given that amount of fame, and also you're thinking of like 80, mid 80s, right? So the height of cocaine, you're coming off of Studio 54 is probably still a little bit there. Like, so these kids are growing up seeing all of that, thinking, like, fuck, they're tangentially tied to like Barrymore and like all these, these really hard partiers. For them to actually make it out of this, like, legitimately without huge scars is pretty impressive. And I know Demi Moore was
had to go to rehab before St. Elmo's Fire.
Right. But I mean, like, so the article paints them off as being kind of snarky to one another. And then the article then, like I said, the snarkiness of the article is how he paints all of these people. Like Dylan as being not going to be Brando, and Nelson as being a talentless hack. And And just really kind of like he talks about how they drive too fast and they don't treat people with respect. They're fucking 22.
I was gonna say they're kids, they're babies, right? Most of us don't. Like when we're kids, like we're assholes.
Well, and not only that, you're kids with a shit ton of money and all of the
and privilege,
right?
And we have probably, I mean, a lot of them have had that privilege for a long time,
right?
So
yeah, they're all.
I mean, like really, you think Emilio Estevez is
bumming around in Soho, like and getting gigs in huge multi-million-dollar films? Like, how are you going to rein in your ego at that point?
Not that you shouldn't,
right?
But
of course.
I think we understand. Right. Yeah. And
but,
I think it's just kind of lazy on the writer's part to not think about that.
But he talks about the script for a movie called Clear Intent, and that it was so sophisticated, and that when Hughes read it, he thought that he wrote it. It was so good. And they were talking about who should be in it, you know, and maybe Judd could be one of them, and maybe Broderick would want to be a Garb. So the movie that it turned out to be is fucking Men at Work. I'm like, that's the movie. Now, granted, Hughes didn't have 1,000. He wasn't batting 1,000. He did Curly Sue and a bunch of other shit. Like it's not like everything that he did was gold, but like Men at Work on paper was such a solid of a film that it's so sophisticated and funny. I just like
I've seen Men at Work several times.
It's it's terrible.
How would that ever?
I don't know. Like I have no idea.
What was the original script and what happened to it?
Right.
And I mean the guy that I forget the actor's name, but he always handcuffs the people, like the two guys, as if they're having sex.
Right.
It's like this running joke. It's just not funny.
But and there's a bunch of people that are, I mean, like, you know, again, that are left. It's funny that they mentioned the article mentions the protagonist from Just One of the Guys, the love interest in Just One of the Guys. And I had to look him up. I mean, I knew the name and I know the film because of the ending, but it was funny to me that all these kind of guys like circle around, but then all the people he doesn't mention, like Elias Koteas and Craig Sheffer and like all these people that are in kind of these other films. It's crazy. It's weird that these ones, these that were mentioned, and then certain ones, especially for me, the one that stood out was Charlie Sheen. Yeah. And then he doesn't, because he's so tied to Estevez, like, why wouldn't he have shown up in this?
Yeah.
But I mean, ultimately the documentary, I mean, I find it disappointing as a whole because like I'm fine with McCarthy needing some sort of catharsis and like realization that he's going to be okay 30 years on, and that as all of his friends view him in a light that, or at least, you know, his coworkers viewed him in a light that is positive and you know, I think the Rob Lowe part, it was the kind of sweetest sentimentality part of it. It's like, hey man, it's all fucking good, right? You're living the life and you breathe and the sun's shining and it's, you know, it's all fine. Of course, I mean, like he still looks like he's 6 and like
right. But and he's gone through like several different sort of like resurgences in his career too.
Right.
You know, that all of a sudden he'll pop up on Parks and Rec and now he's like a star again, right? I mean,
and I do think it's a missed opportunity to like not talk about like the phenomenon that actually was around these people, and like because they do kind of touch on it and then go away from it about how this was an era that is a pretty interesting one in film. I mean, like where we were starting to tell movies, or started to tell stories and make movies about young people for young people, and not talking at young people. I mean, like all of the ones that kind of like even like Red Dawn and like these stories that were, you know, weirdly representation for youth that weren't being told and that were being box office successes. It's, if he had have kind of diverted, once he realized that, hey, maybe not everyone's on board on this pity party that I'm trying to throw for everyone here, he could have gotten more people to participate, got everyone back in a room together to talk about how, yeah, it was difficult to navigate this a lot of times, but we did some important work and we defined a generation for good, bad, and different, you know, and we're talking about, you could even talk about the lack of representation. He was afforded an opportunity, and I hope that it was a catharsis for him, but it didn't make for a good documentary.
Well, no, and it feels like he already had an end point, right? He's like, this is where I end the film, and it was like, I'm going to get there no matter what. Right, I'm not going to deviate. I mean, sort of what you're saying.
Right,
I'm going to stick on this thing, and everyone's going to keep telling me like it didn't affect me the same way, but I'm going to keep going.
I think he wanted to take all the stories to Bloom. I think he wanted everyone in the room with Bloom to say, "Hey, man, you hurt us."
Yeah,
and to that end, like you're a movie star, dude.
I know.
Like, I mean, for, you know, whether or not that's true or not, whether or not you're recognizable, you headlined major motion pictures. Like you've had a good career. You were the first name on a marquee. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, movies were sold on your name. And so to go to Bloom and to expect some sort of like mea culpa is ridiculous. Especially because it was a cute term that he threw in. It was a clickbait article title. Right. But I do, I think this is another kind of opportunity missed of like digging into or digging deeper and down into this idea of what media can do. And I don't mean like media in the kind of, I don't know, negative, overblown way we give it. Sure. But I mean, we've talked about, especially like young female stars, and when somebody says something about them and they get saddled with that forever. Right. I mean, your pal Jojo Siwa or whatever. But then like what happens because of that, right? What happens when enough people start to buy into that idea? How do you get away from that, or what does that turn you into? Right. And so instead of having a pity party, he could have, you know, kept going into that. Yeah. Right. But yeah. Because that's what I thought was interesting about this. I mean, I do feel for McCarthy a little bit. I mean, I made some disparaging remarks about his kind of whatever, right? And now I'm like, I feel a little bad. There's a bravery to put what he put on film. No, there is, and there to kind of stay with it. I think there's a moment, like, it doesn't feel like he ever the arc doesn't work, right? Because he does go back to Bloom, and I think that you're right. He wanted to end the film there on some sort of big, aha, I gotcha. Mm-hmm. And then he wanted to be the one who's gracious enough to offer him a hug and say, let's roll credits and bro it out a little bit, right? Yeah. And we'll let bygones be bygones, and 30 years later, you and I will go get a beer together. I think the narrative should have been, it would have been more interesting to come up to you and say, hey, you know, I've been carrying all of this, and I've been holding a lot of resentment towards you unfairly. And you know, because like in a realization that, hey, you know what I wanted, man? I wanted you to mention me in the article. Yeah. You know, why of all the bad shit I wanted, why didn't you say anything about me? Right. Like I'm right there. I'm right the fuck there. I'm in St. Elmo's Fire, man. I'm in Pretty in Pink. Like you could have included me. Yeah, it is weird that he didn't. It really is. It is. Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was interesting the way that it was sold and how it ultimately ended up. And I think it's kind of brave for McCarthy to just, I mean, I don't know, to continue to put it out there. I mean, whatever, it's fine. There is no bad press at this point. Right. And so like, right. And again, he's going to be fine. He will be fine. Yeah. And now him and Emilio can go to that movie together. So speaking of movies together, Young Guns 3 and the prequel, St. Elmo's Fire, would you like to dig into this quote-unquote dangerous banger? I think it's just dangerous in terms of how much I hate this movie. Hey, I hated it when I first saw it. I hated it when I watched it. St. Elmo's Fire burning in me.
I can't remember who met who first or who fell in love with who first. All I can remember is the seven of us always together.
Well, it's not just infatuation, Kevin. She's not just a girl. She's the only evidence of God that I can find on this entire planet.
Where did you meet Wendy again?
Prison.
Hi, Felice. How you doing? Me? Oh, you know, it ain't easy being me.
You know all those nights we stayed up talking? How come you never made a pass at me?
I'm gonna get you a red, lacy baby doll Nike.
Alec, I'm very happy in your old pajamas.
Well, I'm happy when you're out of my old pajamas.
Alec is becoming a Republican and he wants to get married. Oh my God. Do you ever feel like you're not accomplishing anything at all?
I think I'm in touch with that emotion.
You're not gonna believe how out of hand it's gonna be.
hate that song. I hate the video. I hate the video to the song. That's like a sequel because we're all looking.
I think you're wrong.
No, it's a shitty song. No, it's a shitty song, and his hair fucking sucks.
See, I think you're mad about all the wrong reasons. If you just listen to the song, look. I will say that song and the saxophone song for an 80s film.
Okay.
I think it moved the movie along. This is a shit movie.
It's so
bad. It's so terrible.
So bad.
So we follow.
This is a group of friends just out of college struggle with adulthood.
Pseudo Georgetown, but not quite Georgetown.
Right.
They're not wearing Georgetown colors, but it's still Georgetown.
Look, I will say this.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, that was the sound from your...
I will say this.
So what causes a feedback loop? No. So I hated this film. The critics hated this film. The audiences, God love them, loved it. I still say this should have been a musical. The whole thing should have been a musical. The saxophone would have made more sense to me, right? So, it should have been Yuppie La Boheme.
When did you engage this film first?
Oh, God, let's see. This came out in 85. I probably first saw it. I think my mother had it on like a dub cassette.
Okay.
And I probably saw it like with her, I don't know, 10, 11, somewhere around there.
So you saw it too early. So it was no.
Sure.
To you
but I was just like, this is fucking stupid.
Right.
And then I think I tried to watch it again. I feel like like a high school girlfriend, we watched it, and I was like, this is fucking stupid.
I watched it right at that, like, I would have been, like, I probably watched it when it came out on VHS, and I would have been right in that 12 to 13 range, and all this shit rang true to me. Like, it was just like... No. It all was just like, oh, this is how fucking life is, man. Like, you break up and you got to figure out who splits up the Billy Joel albums, and like,
no Springsteen is leaving this house.
And I was that fucking kid too. Like, it was like a heart on the sleeve kind of fucking like nostalgic and sentimental for shit that never happened to me kind of kid.
No,
like,
I get you, but this movie is so melodramatic and like over the top, and like it's so hard. Here's the thing: I don't think the movie doesn't take these people and their problems seriously until it does, and by then it's too late.
Well, these movies, the problems they have are way too heavy for kids who are just out of college.
Right.
I mean, like
or they're just completely silly.
Right.
I mean, really.
Well, yeah. So all of them are horrible people, right? They're all horrible people. This is like Love Actually before Love Actually.
Yeah.
I mean, so we get two couples that are yuppie upper middle crust, like politicians, right? And I'm not ever sure what Ali Sheedy does.
I don't think she does anything.
She's like a housewife.
Yeah.
That immediately a housewife out of Georgetown. She has no agency whatsoever.
I know. And
then Mare Winningham is a social worker, but she comes from this long line of greeting card like magnates,
which is really funny,
right?
But so she's a social worker, and
got married,
and her dad is still paying for everything,
right? Rob Lowe is the consummate fuck up, and a shit fucking person,
dude. Some of the things he says.
Well, yeah, it's fucking terrible.
Oh my God!
Like, it's weird that we're supposed to rally around him.
I know.
As a character, right?
So like when he says like, it's okay, this face seats 5. That's kind of funny, right? But then he more or less assaults Demi Moore and says something like, you wouldn't refuse much with me in your mouth. And I'm just like, what the fuck?
Right.
Jesus Christ.
She wants to go home. She's having a terrible time because her stepmother is dying.
Yeah.
And she's lost her job.
Yeah.
He takes her car keys and shoves them down his pants.
And she's like,
outside of his
home
where his ex-wife is living
with their kid. Well, no, they're still married, right?
Oh, that's right, they are still married. Yeah, because they break up at the end because he says, I don't want to be one of those dads that just comes around on the weekend. She wouldn't want that. I'm like, she needs a fucking father.
So you're just gonna leave?
Like,
and everyone's like, hey, good for you. You're finally going to New York to play saxophone.
So Estevez is
stalking Annie McDowell,
an ex date of his.
Yeah, they had like one date, and she doesn't even remember him.
And he thinks he's in love with her. And he's in law school working in this bar, the St. Elmo's bar where they all go to. Andrew McCarthy is a writer who's working for the
Washington Post.
Right. Straight out of college.
Yeah, and doing obits and
pining for the
Ali Sheedy.
Ali Sheedy, who's never loved him, but now but everyone thinks he's gay because he never dates anybody because he's in love with
Ali Sheedy.
Really weird film. Like, as far as like, because Joel Schumacher is a queer filmmaker, it's a really weird way to portray homosexuality on screen.
Yeah.
Like, it's very cliche, and like talking about like despair and Three Bewildered People. Like, this was the portrayal of homosexuality on screen, even when it was portrayed in a sense of acceptance. Right. It's a overly effeminate man who just is like
garish clothes,
like lounging around during the middle of the day, drinking like fruity drinks,
weird cocktails. Yeah.
Right. And then willing to sexually throw himself at, or sexually
anyone.
Like, yeah, is, teach anyone sexually that, that it might happen to be gay. Demi Moore is a debutante who is on coke the entire time and sleeping with her boss. And she works at a bank, which, I mean, like, again, straight out of college, she's working at a bank. And then is anybody else? That's it. That's all. And then no, that's it. That's everybody. Yeah. They all suck.
Right. Yeah, no, they completely suck.
And so Judd Nelson is fucking around on Ali Sheedy.
Right.
And then when Ali Sheedy finds out, she sleeps with Andrew McCarthy
because he finally confesses
his love to her. Rob Lowe he screws up everyone else's life.
They're always fixing his problem,
right?
Especially Mary Winningham, because Mary Winningham's like in love with him,
right? And he uses her to like as a anchor in his life to always kind of come back to and get money from, but then makes her feel belittled because she's a virgin and she's fat,
quote unquote.
Right? She is like not even 1985 standards. Is she even remotely large?
I know.
Like, even slightly overweight. She was in they put her in front. Now, here's the thing.
She was in terrible clothes.
Well, she was pregnant when she was making the film.
Oh, right.
And so yeah, she might have looked a certain way, but it's so.
So what you're saying is women are fat when they're pregnant.
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, that's what I'm saying.
Okay.
And women, and they're disgusting. I mean, it's just
obviously.
It's clear. And look, when we started this podcast, I told you one thing. I told you two things. I want to talk about movies and how disgusting pregnant women are. It sucks that we just now starting to get around to how disgusting.
But look, we were easing our way into it.
Right. You don't want to start out with that message. No, it's just it's subversive.
Bring people along into
Jesus Christ. But yeah, so he keeps coming back to her for money and that whole sequence where he like deflowers her as a gift.
I know.
They eventually have sex because she's been trying, like her father's been trying to set her up with nerdy Jewish guys.
Terrible people.
Howie. They're all terrible people. Like you can go back to Howie no matter how ugly he is. Like, I mean, like what? Howie was perfectly fine looking. He was not attractive, but
he was no Rob Lowe.
He's no Rob Lowe.
But I mean, are any of us?
No,
yeah.
No. I like it. Really, looking back, it's all. It has to all be nostalgia bait. Like, it's weird that this movie was as popular as it was because it doesn't really speak. It speaks to the evolution of what Hughes's films would become, right? I mean, and not that Hughes moved into this realm, but like, if you were to take all of those awful characters, all those white privileged characters in Hughes films, they would all become these people who had to deal with, now that they didn't have mommy and daddy's money to hide all their problems.
They still kind of do.
Right. Well, they're all still trust fund kids, right?
Right.
And they have no real issues whatsoever. All of them kind of breeze through this world. And even Rob Lowe, who is supposed to be the most destitute of them all, and Demi Moore, who is always high on coke and is up to her eyeballs in debt.
Yeah,
like she's still fine. Like she still dresses in in high couture. I mean, it's not like it's but yeah, they're all circling around Lowe, and then so they're all just bad people in general. And then they like all of the denouements for all of them are bad. Like Judd Nelson and Andrew McCarthy both sleep with Ali Sheedy. Well, I mean, Andrew McCarthy sleeps with Ali Sheedy, and then they both kind of like I thought you were the love of my life. I thought you were the love of my life. And she's going to spend time alone, but they're all fine. They're all just like, there's no repercussions from that relationship.
We should, and then what do they say? Like, I think we should kill her. Like, as a joke.
And then, right. And then McCarthy, and I mean, not McCarthy, but Estevez, basically has his car fixed by Tony Goldwyn and like gets a picture with Andy McDowell after he stalked her over and over and over again, shown up to her house in the woods. And then stays the night and realizes that she's banging somebody else, so she can't be the girl that he thought she was. Which, fuck you, dude. And then he's like, see you later, dude. And then drives off in a stolen LeBaron.
After like sneaking or like stealing a kiss, right?
Right, yeah. Lowe abandons his family.
And everyone's okay with that.
Right.
Everyone's like, no, go off and like be an art monster.
And Demi Moore buries her stepmother and then evidently gets the inheritance money from that. So she's like, so she'll be fine.
Until she snorts it all. Right. With like oil guys from the Middle East.
Yeah. I mean, like all of the lines are pretty terrible. I mean, the one line that sells the trailer, right, is I thought we'd be friends forever and forever got a lot shorter, didn't it? I mean, that's not a bad line. That's not a terrible line. No. But the rest of it is just, it reeks of like all of Shoemaker's worst tendencies, right? I mean, like, and Shoemaker is a really interesting, like he has some, but I don't know, he's got some really bad films.
David Denby called him brutally untalented.
Yeah. So
not a banger. Does not bang.
I did think it banged. I thought it banged at one point, but yeah, you're right. It's not banging.
This is not a.
But I'm gonna go to bat for St. Elmo's Fire. The St. Elmo's Fire holds up. Like if it's, I mean, look, you hate the movie, you're gonna hate the song St. Elmo's Fire. But like, as far as like '80s anthems go, St. Elmo's Fire is fine. It's fine.
But this is assuming that 80s anthems are fine.
It's not Kenny. Look, fuck, man, come on. We're not going to sit here on this podcast and disparage Kenny Loggins, okay? We're not going to fucking do it. We're not going to talk about I'm All Right. We're not going to talk about Highway to the Danger Zone. Look, say what you fucking will, man. They don't have to be good songs. They just have to fucking make you feel a certain way.
Okay.
That's exactly what they do.
Okay.
I don't want to point my finger at you. Okay. It seems very aggressive. I apologize for that now.
I know. I do want to point out that like Jason's nails have just been done recently. Yeah. Like this kind of like forest green. Yeah. I mean, they're really nice.
Thank you.
But yeah, the pointing, the forest green.
I know you.
Hey, I know you. I'm not a strong swimmer.
Look, and that's my whole point. Like, I don't want to listen to Highway to the Danger Zone or Meet Me Halfway Across the Sky if I'm not watching Over the Top. But I will say that whatever that was, that it evoked this, whatever swell of emotion. Those songs did it well in the midst of those movies.
Sure.
And I just watched something recently. I watched another Kevin Bacon. Not that he was in this. And why wasn't Kevin Bacon part of the Brat Pack?
Right.
That Quicksilver, the Bicycle Messenger. That movie has a fucking shit soundtrack, and it just pulls the whole thing down. Like, let's hear it for the boy. Will take a movie a long fucking way, right? I mean, like
it's playing in my head right now.
You're the best. You're the best around. Come on, like a good montage song, like just.
Was the 80s the sort of apex of that?
It has to be.
Right?
It has to be. Like, you don't get it anymore. Like, maybe it all died with, like, Your Heart Will Go On. I think those types of, like... And then those weren't... I mean, it wasn't the same thing, right? But it was
right.
These theme from whatever, right?
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, everyone was using... And maybe it was Rocky that kind of started the whole trend of, like, the montage song and, like, this swelling. But, like... I don't know.
And that kind of, arena.
Yeah. That
arena rock type stuff.
Yeah. And I say St. Elmo's Fire is right in there with them. So.
Okay.
Burning in me. I can see it burning.
Okay. Can we move on? Can we talk about a good movie?
Sure.
Wait, did you like Totally Fucked Up?
I did like Totally Fucked Up.
Yeah, you did.
Sponsor genocide.
Look at me. I guess you could say I'm totally fucked up.
I'm Steven, and I'm making this video, well, because I want to show the way things really are.
Are
America's committing genocide against its own people, and eventually this plague's gonna rack up more casualties than Hiroshima and Hitler combined. My favorite thing is being kissed.
I guess I haven't figured out exactly what it is I like to do yet.
Okay, cut.
Another movie with virtually no budget. So this is totally fucked up. 1993, the first in the Teenage Apocalypse Trilogy, which I have said multiple times over this podcast and the last podcast, or last episode. 6 queer teenagers struggled to get along with each other and with life in the face of varying obstacles. So again, first film in that trilogy. I think it's interesting how this film aligns with like St. Elmo's Fire, right? Yeah. Or something like a John Hughes films. Oh, here, Araki calls this, and this is his language, not mine. I'm going to read the entire quote. So Araki calls this a ragtag story of the Faggot teen underground, a kind of cross between avant-garde experimental cinema and a queer John Hughes flick. It's sassy, it's punk. This is like a Gen X love letter to the outsiders who didn't fit with the other outsiders.
Yeah.
I mean,
it can't be understated how important these films are just for the message that they're delivering. And for the characters they're portraying, and I don't know if it's just by sheer luck or just our genius of cinephilia, but like we keep choosing these directors that have been groundbreaking in a sense, and I say that with obviously as much disdain as I say that all pregnant women are gross. Even though I say it with such a plum, I mean, and it's such ease. It's very hard to tell where I'm coming from in any time. But
this is true. This is why we do this though.
Right. But I mean, like it really, we said it with The Living End. You did not see characters like this. Even in like Reality Bites, which is 95, and Janine Garofalo, she's still seen as like this frumpy, woebegone sidekick. These are main characters living their lives, stating, as much as I hate to say it, like they're telling their stories, right? As much as we talk about like how representation is important and it matters to, like, I can't imagine being a young queer teen in this time and being able to stumble across these films and what it would mean to me to see these. Yeah. And we couple it with like, I don't want to get into like which film is better than the other or why we would champion one over the other. But if you take a look at something like, and I get why we do it because controversy sells, right? But like if you take a look at something like this versus Kids, right? Why do we not speak more of Totally Fucked Up,
right,
rather than Kids? Because these kids, yes, they are confused and I understand also the time frame, but in the same sense, right, where Casper has AIDS, right? It's almost
Casper doesn't.
Kelly has AIDS, right? Well, Casper will potentially get AIDS.
Yeah, well, no, right. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Telly has AIDS and actively doesn't care. He's spreading it around. Well, he doesn't know, I guess.
I was going to say, yeah.
The Chloe Sevigny hasn't told him yet. But
although she keeps trying to.
In the sense of these, we're more interested in the scandal and the outrage that Kids evokes rather than the horror and empathy. And when I say horror, I mean like the horror of how we have been ignoring this group in society, and we've said it before, but demonizing them for no reason of their own. This is intercut with a lot of homosexual, like pornographic imagery as well, but then also some like really grotesque, like religious imagery and statements, and I think the way that he puts this together and how it's would have spoken to a youth culture, even still today, right? The way that it's cut, the way that it's filmed, the way that the title sequences come in, and not really title sequences, but
they're like interstitials, right? I mean, because this is like, I mean, it's even in the title of the film, right? Another homo movie by Gregg Araki and 15 celluloid, I forget what he says, right? Segments or whatever, right? So, I mean, yeah, they're like interstitials, they're parts. I mean, they're fragments. I mean, that's what this is. And this is where, I mean, this is, again, Araki loves Godard, right? And so this is very much a masculine, feminine kind of, his version of that, right? With those cuts. But I think, I mean, it had to be, because I would have been, this was what, 93, so I'm not watching this at this point.
No, me either.
Right?
I wouldn't have known it. I didn't really come around to Araki until probably Doom Generation.
Yeah, and Doom Generation was what, 94? Yeah. And I mean, again, so like that high school girlfriend who I reference weirdly quite a bit in this podcast.
Let's get her on the podcast. What's she doing?
I don't know.
Is she dating Tony Goldwyn?
You know, maybe. I don't know. I have no idea what happened to her. Right. Anyway,
come on. Let's figure that out. Let's dig that.
Let's not. She doesn't need to hear from me or you. Okay. But her older brother was really cool. I mean,
let's get him on there.
Okay, he might enjoy talking with us, but he was the one who introduced me to Doom Generation. And that was the first of Araki's film and so I mean, I was like 17 when I saw it. I still, didn't grasp. Right.
I think it would have been hard to come at these films with any sort of like openness. And openness is the wrong term, but like realization of their importance or what they would mean, like especially if you weren't a queer kid at this time.
But I think nothing else looks like this, right?
Right.
I mean, I watch this film and I think of, you know, the aforementioned Reality Bites because of the use of the handheld camera, right? And I would have seen Reality Bites before I saw any Araki stuff,
sure,
right? But it reminds me of the Real World.
Yeah, right? MTV, anything MTV was doing at the time.
Exactly. I mean, it's coming from this, but this is taking it so much further, right? And in a movie like Totally Fucked Up doesn't know and doesn't care how cool it is, right? Where a movie like Reality Bites is trying to be like a little too cool for school, right?
It is the Cameron Crowe.
There's such a difference there. And I think how those films and how those messages then get relayed because of it.
Yeah, I mean, Stiller as a filmmaker. I mean, like, I mean, I'm not going to say he's not funny. I think the Ben Stiller show was fine, but like,
sure. But I mean, but you're right. Think about how Steve Zahn is portrayed in Reality Bites.
Right. It seems like we're. I mean, it seemed like Stiller, especially at the time, was just his character in Reality Bites. I mean, like just trying to like capitalize on what was cool and trendy at the time, and didn't really. I mean, like so if you could put Winona Ryder as Gregg Araki in the movie, it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think something that I really like about this film is kind of Araki's worldview, and so like what I mean is I think that because of this like capital and so in capitalism, I think that all art gets commodified, right? But then so much art and so many movies teach us how to sort of see the world or teach us how to like desire certain things. So, I mean, how many movies do we see where we see kind of this like, you know, future world that isn't ours, but it could be, and boy, we should be happy that our world isn't as bad like that, right? Okay, good. I'm so happy and we're so lucky and let's just love everything. But Araki shows us a world that is exactly ours, and it still sucks, right? And you know, these characters would probably prefer not to participate in this system, right? Would probably prefer to explode it, and that's kind of what we see,
right?
I mean, so Araki's teaching us like, no, fuck this, right? Fuck this, and all this other shit that's going on, right?
Right. Kind of turning a mirror back on, exactly how these kids would see this world.
How destructive this whole system is, right? To these characters, to these kids.
I love the way that I don't even know, I'm sure it was intentional, but I love the way that he incorporates corporate America in his vision and kind of perverts it in a way. I mean, like perverts the message in a way. I mean, like where he's, they're at a Chevron station, they're at the 7-Eleven, they're at certain, recognizable places and he's focusing, the imagery that's kind of pointed out while you have all these words that are being said underneath all of this.
Yeah.
As it's really, and like his evolution from, the first two films to these second two films is really just amazing how he's putting all these things together.
It's in The Living End where Luke comes across the couple reading the Declaration of Independence under the billboard.
Yes. One thing we didn't mention about The Living End, there's a lot of Waters, influence.
I was gonna. It's so like Waters, like reverential, right?
And I do love the S&M couple that goes through both of the films. That basically it's a Dom leading another person, submissive on leash, and calling them fucking deadbeats in one of the scenes is really funny.
And in the two women in The Living End, I mean, are very kind of reminiscent of like a Mink Soul character.
Yeah.
I mean, you could almost be like, were they in a Waters film? Because they play that kind of part
for sure. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Okay, let me ask this question. How do you think... I do sometimes wonder about how Araki writes women. Like the lesbian couple in this film. I don't know that they're...
true to form.
I feel like they're given kind of short shrift.
They do. They definitely take a back seat. By the time the film ends, they're much like the girlfriend in The Living End, where they're just there as support.
Yeah.
Also, one of the most disturbing euphemisms for masturbation that I've ever heard, which is making oyster soup. I was just like, holy fuck! That's right. I've never heard that, and I never wanted to hear that ever. It's like, Jesus, that's brutal. All right, cool. But yeah, I don't. I do.
Sorry.
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say.
And I don't mean to call him out.
No.
But I'm just.
But it's a fair point, because I don't think that their stories are as portrayed as important in this, and they also seemingly have the most stable relationship. They're there to it almost like, and maybe this is speaking to kind of how homosexuality was viewed at the time, but that lesbianism was more accepted because it was, and like even the guys talk about it, right? About how I'd love to see two girls go at it.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a commentary on not reality, but the perception that lesbians were more accepted, and then I don't know, and but they say they provide support to to the men or the boys in their group as well, and kind of provide them like sexual guidance and things like. So it seems like they're
matronly,
and they're more like okay with their situation, even if because they're living together and they're
trying to have a kid,
right? Their situation seems to be more stable than the men. And then maybe that just speaks to Araki's experience as well. Who knows?
Yeah.
I do like, I think, again, going back to the importance of all of this, the anger that is undercut here, the violence that they portrayed against one another, and of course that portrayed against themselves, and coupling, like I said, keep coming back to coupling the shocking ending of this with, again, the shocking ending of Kids.
Yeah.
It just makes me wonder why one wasn't as big as the other, right? I mean, like, because you're talking about a filmmaker, and again, a lot of the selling point of Kids was that Harmony Korine was this, club kid, or like this privileged kid who was coming up and writing this true to life story, right? But this was Araki's experience as well. I mean, yes, he's a little bit older. He's not a 17-year-old Korine, but still.
But he's still writing about that kind of age group experience too.
Right.
I mean, so, how old was Hughes when he was writing?
Right. At least the same. It was probably the same separation from Kids to where Hughes was.
Right. I mean, this is speaking to those.
Yeah.
That generation, that group.
And it seems like that, like, had we been given the opportunity to do so, the people who grew up on Hughes would have been able to champion these films and get behind them. Now, the narrative structure is not there, right? And the budget's not there.
But the narrative structure, you mean a traditional narrative structure?
What I'm saying, like, for moving from, if you like John Hughes films to come and like, and being gotcha. Presented with Araki films. And I understand not everyone's willing to make that leap or to even dig that deep, but it still could have been done, right?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, again, going back to this idea of like anger, alienation, and then in this film, more so than living in the suicidal tendencies that we see the ending of this film, right? The kind of shocking, brutal, and I mean, you know, you would think James Duvall wouldn't drink the drain cleaner if somebody answered the phone,
right?
And I'm not blaming, right? I mean, there's other stuff going on, right?
But I think that was the point, right?
That was the whole point.
If anybody had answered, he would have been fine.
Yeah,
I mean, not fine necessarily, but
no, but I mean, what a fucking metaphor for that, right?
Right.
Whereas like no one is listening and no one is picking up and no one wants to hear what I have to say anyway because I'm just totally fucked up.
And he's sitting, he's sitting behind a poster. With Jesus and Mary came down, like, and it's just a whole fucking conspiracy against you thing. It's It really, I mean, I don't know how to quantify what it must have been like in that era and to be queer and to have to deal with that type of fear and hatred. Look, and I know that other groups have faced it, right? I'm not trying to diminish those as well, but like, as far as documenting what, I mean, in the moment, documenting what it felt like, are there any other films that do that? I mean, outside of these?
No. Forrest Gump. I'm sorry.
Right. No other films. It's like only Tom Hanks films speak to the AIDS crisis specifically.
Right.
Philadelphia and Forrest
Gump. And Philadelphia.
And That Thing You Do.
No.
Which was secretly about AIDS.
Right.
That Thing You Do is AIDS.
The breaking up of the band. Right. That had so much potential and that could have been something.
Right.
But it was like a conversion therapy story.
Yes. Yeah.
So, you know.
But I mean,
I'm sorry. No. You're right. I mean, I think that what Araki is able to do is really kind of get inside of a current moment and speak to it, right, and really attach himself and his point of view to it in a way that others can't. I mean, look, as much as you want to say that like the Breakfast Club was resonant, is it though?
No.
I mean, right. No, where this film is.
Look, The Breakfast Club is, I think, seminal because it takes kids at face value, right? Everyone realizes that the problem...
all the straight white kids.
Maybe. But everyone realizes that the problems that the kids face in Breakfast Club are bullshit, right?
I know.
But the emotion
Well, I
is
mean,
real,
authority
right?
and power is not bullshit. I mean,
True.
so if you extend that metaphor, I think, into something similar that we see here, then okay, maybe I can actually draw a parallel because both of these films are dealing with systemic power structures, right? Hegemonic power structures that keep things a certain way and keep a certain section down or subservient or try to keep them subservient. So actually, let me take back my comment about the Breakfast Club.
Well, but the Breakfast Club, the end story is that they'll become power to the power structure, right?
I don't know though. Like, are they? Because I mean, what I mean is
what
like,
Ali Sheedy said. You heard what she said. When you become adults, you die inside.
Okay, sure. But I think the idea was that when they left detention, that they were going to somehow dismantle that power structure from within.
The six of them together.
Right? The six of them together by forming a different kind of community, very similar to what's going on in Totally Fucked Up, where together they're going to fight against and destroy this kind of systemic thing that keeps them, outsiders and sort of, in the unwanted category.
Right, but the Breakfast Club wasn't in the unwanted. Only a certain portion of them were in the unwanted category.
True. But think about how we protest.
I guess with the lesbians, you could say they're not unwanted at this point. Right. But not everyone is from. Look, you need allies as well, and you need people that find themselves within these kind of
evil empire structures to also join in and fight against this structure.
Do you think?
Do I listen to myself? No, I don't.
No.
Clearly.
Do you? Yeah. Do you hear what you're saying, sir? No. Do you think that at the end, on Sunday or Monday post Saturday of Breakfast Club, that Molly Ringwald and Emilio Estevez were able to fight against the societal pressure to then still ostracize the other three?
I think that on the face of it, they went along as if everything was the same, but in a kind of underground guerrilla style, they, worked together to dismantle the system.
Slowly but surely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then that high school turned into...
Right, the
progressively minded,
this utopian high school existence.
They started to adopt kind of like Dewey's philosophy of education, and then these kids were like, everyone was like, "Whoa, these guys are like really sharp."
When the only people we ostracize are homosexual Asians.
Yes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yes. And then they like tape their butt cheeks together.
You know how hairy he is, right? A fucked up line.
I know.
I pulled the elephant's nose and the fucking lamp didn't come on. I'm an idiot because I can't make an elephant lamp. No, you're a fucking genius because you can't make an elephant. You quote that whole guy. I can quote the fucking TV version of that movie. It doesn't even matter. But
you have both versions
right.
in your head at the same time.
My socks. Funny. A funny story. Kat tried to show, I guess she kind of forgotten, and she was going to show Ben the Breakfast Club, and I'm like, oh, why are you doing that? Like, that's not a good thing. Like, it's very sexual, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of
stuff.
There's a lot of stuff going on at the beginning, like pants balled up on the on the passenger seat, and past 10 o'clock on a school night.
Well. You never know what happens after school. Anything else you want to say about?
No, I think
totally fucked up.
Look, I mean, as much as we talked about how like Three Bewildered People and Oh Despair are difficult watches just from a technical perspective, I definitely would recommend going out and watching The Living End and Totally Fucked Up. Just because, the Totally Fucked Up has a 2K transfer coming up next month from Criterion, and it'll probably be on the Criterion channel. I wonder what else will be out there. I'm guessing Mysterious Skin and a few other things, but
I mean, you can Kaboom is on Mubi right now.
Yeah.
And then I thought Mysterious Skin was.
I'm sure it's somewhere.
I think a German distributor did a Blu-ray of that.
But I would say watch these movies because they are important, and I think you will see kind of an evolution of queer cinema. That if you're not familiar with somebody like Fassbender or even like Waters or like it speaks to a new generation of queer cinema that was burgeoning at the time, and it would really lay the groundwork again for so much stuff that would come later. And we can recommend all the things that would come out afterwards that you can point back to Araki.
Yeah, not Forrest Gump,
not Forrest Gump. But yeah, I mean, hours and hours and hours of MTV. Almost everything that came on MTV was essentially just like just a direct crib from all of this.
When they start getting real,
So yeah, no. I mean, I think these are really, really important films, and I think I think they're good. I mean, I think they're interesting. From a perspective of like, you have to give The Living End a little bit of grace in regards to, it is a little bit more whimsical. It is a little bit more, it's trying to find itself in a lot of different ways. Like it kind of bounces around. It's not tonally consistent the entire way through, but I think that speaks to the inner turmoil of the characters as well.
Oh yeah.
And then I think, again, with
but The Living End, I mean, so all of that, like, notwithstanding, it is not a film like Hitman that we talked about last episode as well. And in terms of that unevenness.
Right.
So,
it's not incompetent. It's not, it's just,
no,
it's challenging in a certain sense.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
I think all of these films are. I mean,
agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. These are not going to be casual watches for anyone. nor should they be.
No.
If you're watching these casual, I mean, one, then either you're a really big fan of them and have just put them on in the background to hear them talk, which is great.
Fold laundry.
But if they're casual watches for you on a first time watch, you're missing a shit ton of stuff.
Oh my God.
Right.
No, I mean, yeah, these are movies that you can keep going back to and finding new things like each time.
Yeah, I think it's smart to do. I think what Criterion is doing with the box set, again, like I said, I would like for them to address the other films. And I think an early films of Araki set would be good as well with the three first.
Yeah.
But seeing Totally Fucked Up and Nowhere and Doom Generation together, I do think is, I think that's a good way to view all of those.
It's probably
films.
a good introduction to Araki as well.
Agreed, right. But because if you don't like those, your mileage is probably going to be diminished if you try to go back to the first three.
Until you get like to White Bird in a Snowstorm.
Right. Which I still haven't seen. So I'll address that when we get that episode out.
Yeah. I haven't seen it either.
I'm afraid that's going to be our David Gordon Green ending for...
Does Eva Green take her shirt off in every movie she's in? And look, I don't mean that as a like, I can't believe that she would do that. I just feel like if you see her, you're almost like, look, her top is coming off.
And not in Casino Royale. Like the...
you sure?
I'm 100%. I mean, there might be some side boob, but there's no frontal...
She was even in like a TV series about like Merlin for a while, and she was naked in that. Look, I'm an Eva Green fan.
I am as well.
I think she's great.
I
think she's probably underrated.
Like you love Michael Pitt. I know how much you like Michael Pitt.
Fuck, I like Louis Garrel.
Full frontal Michael Pitt with a playing card on his.
But still, like that film should have been. I'm sorry, Saltburn should have been that film. I've said this before, but I will say it again. Enough there.
Enough going back to Saltburn?
Enough going back to Saltburn and asking if Eva Green takes her... I feel bad now for saying that.
You should.
Look. She's a beautiful woman, and I think she's a good actress. And I'm just always kind of like, whoa, she always takes her top off. And I don't mean like...
So we talked about this, though. One thing we were going to talk about on the podcast, we talked about Saltburn, so I think we can get into this.
Okay.
And I know it's late in the episode, and we've said that these are going to be shorter, but you know what? What are you going to do?
Yeah, you're not paying for this. Right. So, like, again, like, what do you want for free?
So I mentioned to you off mic that we made fun of Challengers for being the sexiest film without sex. And the question I had for you, reading articles about how this generation is not having as much sex, were we wrong to make fun of it? Or were we wrong to make fun of that phrasing? And is it possible maybe we shouldn't have been so dismissive of sex without sex or sexiness without sex? And so to the extent of like, we're going to ask, does Eva Green take her shirt off in every film? Because we grew up. Look,
this is true.
Here's the thing. Yeah. And I'm going to lay this out there, and I'm not going to apologize for it, but I'm not going to say that I'm proud of it either. But there was a very long period in my life where movies that I rented, I rented because there might be nudity in those films. I looked for boobs.
Yeah.
And I knew when to be disinterested in horror films after the first kill started, because most likely boobs weren't coming out after that first kill. Right. Look, I'm not going to apologize. I find boobs attractive on the most part, for the most part.
And so...
Not pregnant or mutilated.
Let me say this. I would say this. Saltburn is a much sexier movie than Challengers.
Sure.
Hands down.
Right, but it's also...
And I didn't really love that movie, but...
Right.
But here's the thing, but to get to your question, because I understand that I'm not addressing your point. Okay.
I don't think... Were we too dismissive, I guess?
No, because I don't think Challengers was sexy at all. So, I mean, because you can be sexy without having sex. I understand that can be a thing. But that movie is not sexy in any of its portrayals of intimacy at all.
Because Zendaya doesn't really allow it, right? She doesn't clearly get enjoyment from...
Well, that's the thing.
It's a power thing for her than it is more than it is about sex.
And here's and power can be... Look, hang on, because... Look, sex is power.
But she's not playing... Right, but
right. And she's not even using like power as sex. If if we saw her, and I don't mean this literally, right, get off on the power, that would be something else. But she never shows any kind of like pleasurable reaction.
There's almost a reluctance that she's saddled to these two guys because her knee blew out.
Right. And even the two of them together aren't sexy.
No,
and I keep saying that like
that film is
that should be hot.
Right.
Because those two, they're hot guys. They should be hot. Like when they're even in that sauna scene, right? I'm not scared of your dick anymore, whatever. I'm like,
dicks around.
That's like not. I meant the other one,
right?
Where there's just two of them
together.
together.
Room scene. Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah, that should have been like.
It should have
a steamy scene, right? Because they're in a sauna, right? No, see what I did there?
I don't know what to say. I don't know. This is.
But no, it should have been. But it just wasn't. Like there was no. And I don't understand how it wasn't.
So we're fair to challengers to say that it's silly to say that you were the sexiest. It maybe making fun of that phrase is wrong, but not making fun of challengers was okay because it wasn't sexy even without the sex.
Right. And so like if people think that that's sexy, then they have a.
So let's add this. But if Zendaya had have enjoyed the sex more in the film, would it have been a sexier film?
I think it would have been because how are you going to say something sexy when no one looks like they're enjoying anything?
Well, besides churros.
But even that was played for a laugh.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, it was like, yeah, it was played as aggressive, not sexy.
Sexist, Nigel. It's not sexist. Yeah. Okay. So, do we have anything to say about the kids not having as much sex? I guess not kids. I shouldn't say it like that.
Yeah, don't. That's weird.
People not having as much sex these days.
I don't know.
And does that affect movie filmmaking? Does that affect sex on film?
Could be. So if we're see, this is weird too. So, so then are we saying that like they're more chaste?
I don't know. Is there different ways to explore sexuality on film rather than just humping it out?
I think that's what Challengers were trying to say, or by saying Challengers is sexy without having sex, that they were trying to explore that. But the problem is they never did. Right?
Sure.
Oh, they had the one kiss scene, and that wasn't even sexy. That should have been when she leans back,
when she pushes their heads together.
Yeah, when she leans back and looks at them, that should have been like the hottest moment in the movie, and it was still just like, okay, whatever.
Well, it's played for shock value, right? Rather than it is like It's not. There's no release, and I don't mean that in the literal
but there's
sense,
also like no sensuality,
right? There's no like I'm like in my head I'm thinking of other like scenes like that where like I'm thinking of like threesome, like where even as silly as that movie is, when the three of them come together and there's that scene where Baldwin pulls Charles's hand over, there's that moment of realization of like, hey, I'm not this but you are, and you're gonna get, that's pretty fucking hot, right? I mean, like, so there should have been a moment of like, we are rivals, we are also pseudo like friends, and but we also, so this thing that we thought was like brotherly was meant more than that. There should have been a moment in that sequence where one of them balled up their hand or grabbed the back of a neck or like leaned in hard to the kiss.
Yes.
Like there should have been something other than, all right, we're doing this to make Zendaya hot, or like hot and bothered because she pushed her heads together, and we're still hoping we can have sex with her.
And she doesn't even seem that hot and bothered by it.
Right.
That's the other thing. Not even by the fact that she was able to make them do that. Which again, right? If that was her thing, if that was her kink,
right? If like next day she's like, oh, you guys are still. It's like she comes out of the room and comes back in. It's like, whoa, you guys are still going at it. She's got
what I made you do.
She's got like 3 churros in her hand, and she's like, Jesus, guys, come on. If I didn't like,
and then bit it real hard.
She just like leaves them at the foot of the bed and leaves. Like takes her own churro and goes.
But all of the sex
and then
all of the things that
knee on the way out the door.
All the things that hint at sex in that movie are done again with like a wink.
She should have said "come on" way more times.
Come on!
Why aren't you kissing? Why are you kissing so much? All right, we can dig into sex and film a little bit later because we're clearly the guys that were to do it. So, and we'll talk to Eva about the necessity to go topless.
Look, she's clearly comfortable and proud of her body, and good for her.
Well,
I don't mean that.
Right?
I'm just.
Isn't she French?
Is she?
I don't know.
So now we're just like insulting the entire countries.
No, they're just freer with their.
They just show their boobs, right? Like
I'm pretty sure shirts are illegal in France.
They show their boobs and don't shave the pits, right?
Right.
All right. So
pits and tits is the
Michael Pitt and Eva. Okay, there we go. so next time,
see the believers.
Next time we are gonna do more Araki and more other stuff. But but until then,
buckle your seats, baby, and keep on screaming. You have been listening to Why Does the Wilhelm Scream with your hosts, Brock and Jason. If you liked today's episode, do us a favor and rate, review, and subscribe in whatever application you use to consume podcasts these days. You can reach us by visiting whydoesthewilhelmscream.com. If you are in the DFW area, we would love to see you at a Fort Worth Film Club event. You can learn more about those and find a full schedule at fortworthfilmclub.com. And you can learn about my foundation and how we are trying to foster the next generation of film lovers at realhousefoundation.org. That's REEL housefoundation.org. Till next time.